Good evening and welcome to each of you. Wow, it's more than what I expected to be here, but it's good to see each one of you. You know what it's like to find that nugget of gold when digging in old books and dusty archives. You know what it is when you find that special item. Or perhaps an older person in the family or community reveals something that was not known before. And there it is, a choice piece of uncovered history. You grasp a hold of that and we want to savor that and hold it. And if you've ever discovered a new nugget for yourself, you know how much joy that really is. Well, that's what happened to me when I discovered this story here. And I heard about the story years ago and just a whimper of it. And I was busy with my family. We were on a farm and there's just always work to be done. But I thought someday I'm going to go hunt that story and find it out. But a relative called me and said, "Hey, Mary's not doing very well. You better come. Bring a notebook. Let's get the story." So that really prompted me to go and get it. Now, some of you don't know probably who I am. I'm just a valley girl, okay? I come from Rockingham County. I grew up on a farm between Hinton and Rushville, right here in the community where Mary Rohrer's relatives live. I attended Deyerle Enterprise School the last year that it was operating, Dayton Elementary School, John Whelan from Ashby High School, and graduated from Berea Christian School. I married my husband, J.P. Campbell, and we raised a family while living in Rockingham County and Augusta County, and currently we're living in Shenandoah County in Edinburgh. So we're Valley people. But Rockingham County is stamped upon my life. That's where I grew up, and it just makes an impression on my life. The story I present tonight was given to me by Mary when she was 89 and her sister Maggie at 102, as they remembered how it happened. And Mary would not want us to set her on a pedestal or make over her wonderful accomplishments, but she did willingly and cheerfully agree to having her story told. And why not be inspired by her acceptance of what life brought to her? She is an example for us to follow in accepting what life brings our way. This presentation is about Mary, her people, and the response of the compassionate community who helped her after the accident. What did this community here in this area do in a life-threatening experience without a hospital in the vicinity? The closest hospital was Richmond, 200 miles away. Mary Rohrer was a typical 5-year-old girl living in the old order community. And she was a spunky, rambunctious little girl, as you will soon see. She lived outside of Dayton, near the little village of Rushville. Today, you drive through Rushville without a thought, but this place once had a mill, a country store, a schoolhouse, a post office, bank, a dentist, and maybe more. And there was a farm community there that thrived in the region along Dry River. And it was river bottom land, beautiful, productive land. But when Mary's people came there in the 1800s, it was a neglected place. It was a plantation owner, but it had been after the Civil War. And it was neglected, it was swampy, brushy, and Mary's family got in there and cleaned it up and worked hard years and years to make it. And you go down through there, it's beautiful, productive land. Okay, Mary was on the younger end of her family, and she wanted with all of her heart to walk to school. You will see, this is the book that came out of the story. And that's a picture of her walking to her little schoolhouse. She had a great desire that one day, when she was 6 years old, she would walk with her siblings, and there was a whole string of them, and the neighborhood children as they scampered along to the schoolhouse. But she was just 5. She was not there yet, but she had a dream that someday she would walk across the bridge that crosses Dry River and walk to the school. Now, I'm going to have my husband pass out pictures right now that is a part of the story. And while he's passing them out, I'm going to go ahead and tell you a little bit more about Mary's family. The picture that he's giving, just take a look at it. It might not be enough for everybody to see, but it will help give you an idea of what happened in the accident. She was part of a big rural family. There was Israel Rohrer and his wife Lydia, and they were in their 40s when this happened. And Mary had a whole string of brothers and sisters. She had Ava, Henry, Maggie, Amos, William, Anna, Ella, John, and then comes Mary, and then Frank yet, and little sister Mabel was 5 months old when this happened. And besides all of them living in the house, there was grandmother Rohr, and she was German speaking. She never did grasp a hold of the English language, but she was very busy, hospitable, and very active there in the life of the family. And there was also an aunt living there, Aunt Mattie. That's what Mary called her. Mattie would be out in other homes helping, and then come home to be there in the home when she didn't have somewhere else to go. Mary was full of energy and helped on the farm, but being the younger one in the family, there were older brothers and sisters to do the chores. On the evening of August 12th, her brothers were grinding corn. If you will look at the picture that is there before you, this is how they would grind the feed. They would put the corn in the top part, and the horses would trot around and around in a circle, and that would operate the grinder and make the feed come out in the bottom. Well, Mary, being the spunky little girl she was, thought that she'd like to ride on that bar. So if you can take a look at the picture there and think that she could get up there and ride as the horses were going round and round. Just have a merry-go-round ride, okay? So she climbed up there and she was kicking her feet, singing little songs. And all of a sudden, she felt this horrible pinch on her foot. And she hung on as hard as she could. But when she looked down, her foot was missing. This is the gory part of the story, okay? I'm going to keep it just as ungory as I can. I want to tell you what I have been a little bit vague on what really happened. Did she actually get her foot in the grinder, or did she get it pinched in there in the frame of the grinder? I found something in my I dug out my old interview notes. And it's amazing what you find in there. And here's what I found, that her little neighbor girl, I went to visit this neighbor girl with Mary, and that she was in her last years of life. And her mind was sharp when we were there. And here's what she said she remembers of that evening. We were in the front yard. My daddy was there. We heard the screams. We wanted to go along so bad, but Daddy wouldn't let us go. I remember shutting the gate and wondering what happened. My daddy told us he took the foot out of the grinder. Oh. There I have it. There it is. And so that settles to me in my mind. I look at that picture and I think it just doesn't look like you could get your foot in there. Just take it, whether it was or wasn't. No matter what happened, it was a dire situation. She could have bled to death. Quickly, she is carried to the house by her mother and sister Maggie. And they called for a doctor to come quickly. The closest doctor must have been Dr. Turner. That's who they called to come. And Dr. Turner was practicing in Hinton. He came on horseback and evaluated the situation and absolutely knew that he needed help, far more help than what he could do. So he called for 2 more doctors. They sent for help to get 2 more doctors. A Dr. Ralston from Mount Clinton, a Dr. Payne, Payne, from Dayton. As they were waiting for the doctors to come, they were making preparation for an operation on Mary's kitchen table. What can I do to help? Papa asked. We need a lot of light and a table, the doctor said. Mary could hear the scraping of the table legs on the floor as the table was positioned under the mantel where 3 lamps stood in a row. She heard the tinkling of the glass as Papa removed the lampshades and lit each one. She felt herself being carried to the table under the bright glow of the lamps. She blinked as the light flickered on the walls around her. I want my bed, she muttered sleepily. The doctor will help you, Papa said, smoothing her brow. And so the doctor is there trying to make preparation for this serious surgery. And in the distance is the clip-clop of the doctors coming. And the family stepped aside so that the doctors could come in and begin to work. I have that Mary felt little pain as they worked. I don't know what they were using, probably something to put her under, something to help with pain. 1 hour, 2 hours, I'm not really sure how long they worked, but it was a big job. And they needed extra light. So the brothers were taking turns holding the lamp. I don't know what kind of lamp they used to hold it up closer so that the doctors could work. But it came time for Henry, the oldest boy, to hold a lamp high over the table. Suddenly there was a clatter and a thud. The lamp, which had been shining in her eyes, was gone, and the doctors bent over someone on the floor. What happened? Henry sputtered. You fainted, Dr. Turner. Are you all right? I'm fine, Henry said, sitting up. Take it easy now, the doctor advised. Someone else can hold the lamp. And here's what happened. I'll hold it, the neighbor Aldine nicely offered. He would have been a neighbor there nearby. Here is community stepping in, taking their part to assist in a very sad time. Okay. Certainly there were concerned family and friends around. It was a sober time. Probably some weeping from mother, and Mary's mother just felt like she will never walk again. And it would have been a sad, sad time. And the grandmother Rohrer was praying in her German language. The Heavenly Father can hear German also. And so, okay. And they worked for several hours. Then it was time for them to leave. And the doctor said to Mary and her family, I'll be back in the morning. I'm going to check on her. And so he left. Papa scooped her up off of the kitchen table and laid her out on the sofa. And I'm sure it was kind of a rough night. We're not quite as sure how it went, but she still had that dream that one day she's going to walk to the schoolhouse. The doctor returned every day for 10 days. We have a documentation in the back, and you could see it up here too. Mary Rohrer's sister Maggie was such a record keeper. She just enjoyed keeping records, and she'd write down all kinds of stuff. So in the back, we have a record of all the people that came to visit her over almost 3 weeks. Every day there was somebody there, and the doctor was there too. And the people came bringing encouragement, and especially children coming. There was ministers, friends, family, little girls giggling along. And my grandmother is listed in there. She would have been a young girl at that time. And the doctor, guess what he charged for his coming every day? $1.50 for each visit and $15 for the operation. Dr. Ralston charged $10. Dr. Payne, $5, coming to a grand total of $53.50 for the whole operation. That's 115 years ago. All right. And so after that, what happened next? Well, something had to be done with that foot and the limb that was amputated. And so neighbor George Shiplet came and helped make a little box, and mother made some white material line the box, and they put the remains in there and buried the box. Not a very fun thing to do, but there was community pitching in. And these little crutches here were crafted by neighborhood blacksmith Ben Sutherland. He made those and brought them to Mary. Now, I came across in my notebook that they were damaged and needed to be repaired. So Pat and I were looking to see where, but cute little crutches that she would have. And aren't they tiny? I mean, she was just, and she was a petite little girl. I mean, she was not very small featured. Then Maddie came home with that wheelchair up there. And so Mary would have had, look how small it is. She could have sat in that thing and the children could have pushed her around all over the farm. But Mary's papa had the best idea of all. He wanted to take her to Washington, D.C. for a prosthesis. And they would need to ride the train into Washington, D.C. and go to the hanger factory. Now, the hanger factory was begun by James Edward Hanger, who is a local guy. He was from the valley here. He came from Churchville. When the Civil War broke out, he left college and planned to enlist in the Confederate Army. But before he had enlisted, he was injured by a cannonball blast in 1861. And that blast tore off his leg at the knee, and later he had an amputation by a surgeon. And he desired to go back into the Confederate Army, but he was disqualified because of his injury. And so instead, he worked faithfully developing a better prosthesis than what he had. And he developed some quality products. And he applied for a patent and offered to supply the Confederate Army with artificial legs. And then I think later on it would have included the Union side also. His business thrived and expanded. And from what I read is that he expanded into other products for handicapped people. And it's, I think, it's still a thriving business, but I don't think hangers own it anymore. He began the business first in Stanton, but by 1890, the business had been headquartered in Washington, D.C. So this is where Mary and her father went to get measured for a prosthesis. And while they were there several days and several nights, and they went into some stores while they were there in Washington, D.C. And there they found that stuffed teddy bear. Now, teddy bears were just, bears, not teddy bears. No. Toy bears were coming on the market. Yeah, it was teddy bear by the time that Mary had gotten it, but teddy bears were just brand new on the market. And I understand, let me tell you who made that bear. That teddy bear is crafted by Margaret Steiff in Germany. She was from Germany, and she would make toys from scraps that she would get from factories around her home. And she would make other toys, but she had never made a bear. And when she made a bear, it became popular. And I understand that about the same time, there was another toy manufacturer that made a bear came out about the same time. And it also coincided with Teddy Roosevelt being in the office of president. There were several things that coincided to make it Teddy's bears. I have here a clipping that came from Mary, that the first Stuffed Bear was in 1902, and it came to the United States 1903. This happened 1908, so she still has a very early bear. And stuffed bears became popular. Teddy bears became known as teddy bears because of Teddy's hunting expeditions, and he once didn't shoot a bear cub and instead shoot it away. And so I don't know, somehow they put the stories together. And this is interesting that they use stuffed bears dressed as hunters and fishermen because of Roosevelt's reputation as an outdoorsman. And these little bears were put on the tables at the White House dinner. in 1906. So that's two years before this. And Mary said to me about her bear. I came across this yesterday in my notebook. This is what Mary said. My bear used to squeak, but it doesn't squeak anymore. I think he looks intelligent. See, she was just kind of unique. So Mary's prosthesis did come in the mail, and there would have been trial and adjustment over time. She still had that dream that she wanted to go to school. When she turned 6, she still wanted to run along with the children, but her father knew that it was too much, that she would not be able to do that half a mile, still learning to adapt to that wooden leg. So he arranged for her to ride horseback with the school teacher, but no, Mary wasn't happy with that. She wanted to do the real thing, real walking, real being with the children. Well, eventually she got a chance to try walking that half a mile with one of the sisters that was going to the store at Rushville. And so she went along with her sister, but by the time they got to the swinging bridge, she was tired out. So she sat on the swinging bridge while her sister went on. 2 mischievous boys came galloping along on horseback and stopped right there at the river's edge and said to Mary, "You think we can go across?" And she said, this is Mary, just real spunky for a little girl, "You better not." And they turned and galloped away. Day by day, week by week, she adapted, and one day she really was scampering along with the children, their lunch boxes bouncing against her legs, and Mary walking along beside her friend Stella. They crossed the field and climbed up the slatted boards to the swinging bridge. She had made it this far. The school was not that much further on the other side, and she was crossing the river on the swinging bridge. She could walk to school. But you know how boys and girls are when they get on those swinging bridges. Well, you know, the boys, they like to make it swim. So, you know, they made it move. And the children scolded and said, you stop that, Mary might fall. And so they stopped, and then Mary had her turn. So what does Mary do? Well, she wants to be like everybody else. So she just pushes her foot down and just makes it move. And what do the children say? Look at Mary. She's just like the rest of us. Mm-hmm. There's something else that Mary did in her childhood that was very unique for any child. Unique, extraordinary unique for a girl with a wooden limb. There was a girl in the community there in Rushville, Alta Fall girl, who died. She was a child that had died with polio. And the request was that girls around that same age would be pallbearers at her funeral. And Mary just wasn't sure she could do this, but you know, she's a spunky little girl. She's determined to do things. She knew it would be a difficult thing to do. And the day came, the day of the funeral arrived. Papa drove Mama and Mary 4 miles to the little white church at the edge of the small town of Bridgewater. Mary twiddled her thumbs as Papa leaped out of the buggy and tied Pat under a large tree. Then Papa swept her to the ground and turned back so he could assist Mama from the buggy. And then Mary and the little girls got around the casket, and it was 4 steps to go up into the church. And she really wondered whether she would be able to do it. And she held on tightly. She worked as hard as she could. 1 step, 2 step. Could she really do it? Her legs were shaking. And the last step, she did make it. I think that's pretty amazing that little girls could do this. And who knows, maybe there were men there to kind of assist and give a lift. It very likely could have been. In Mary's later life, she succeeded in doing pretty much what everybody else did. Her family said she could do just about anything anyone else did. In her adult years, she stepped into the important role as mother when a mother was taken. In 2 times in the Rohrer family, a mother died with a baby, and the baby was buried with the mother. Bad times. And children would have been left behind and a father. And Mary stepped into these homes and worked cooking, cleaning, caring for the children, sometimes for several years. Some of them were 4 years at a time. And this happened over a period of time. She fulfilled a very important role until the father remarried, and just ongoing throughout life, she ministered to people in the community. She was a babysitter. People would tell me that their mother was babysat by her, and then that when the mother grew up, her children went to Mary's house too to be babysat. And I'm also told that in the later years, she took care of elderly women in her home. She liked to quilt, pretty quilts. And I have down in my notebook that she made 374 quilts. I don't know if she quilted for some people, or if she sold some quilts, or if she made some for her many, many, many nieces and nephews. She has many scores of them. And there are so many nieces and nephews that everybody just calls her Aunt Mary. I call her that. She's not my real aunt, but she's an aunt to so many people. And in summary, the tragic accident of 1908 has become a historic event. Without a hospital and rescue squads in those days, it took courageous doctors working with what skills they had and limited equipment to save her life by operating on a farm kitchen table by the light of lamp. And it took numerous community people to encourage, visit, and contribute in various ways to give Mary mobility in life. Mary's kindness, her love for others, her life and influence have given her family and our community a legacy to treasure. Thank you for your kindness. Thank you for your attention. I hope you remember Mary and are inspired by her life. Thank you.